Joining me now, my favorite intel guy, my absolute #1 favorite intel guy, John Ratcliffe, former director of National Intelligence and former Texas Congressman. John Ratcliffe, welcome back. First of all, I want to ask you, what is the rules here? Don't presidents have the power to declassify? And don't you suspect that most of this stuff in this inventory that we're never going to see, or we're not going to see right away, was declassified? I mean, and related to that, John, this whole business of, top secret and all the rest of it, I mean, is this a mountain out of a molehill or what?
So the president does have ultimate declassification authority. He can literally declassify, and President Trump, of course, had that authority and could declassify anything he want while he was president. But I think what a lot of folks haven't really focused on here, Larry, as you talk about these stories, is, when this all broke earlier this week, I thought, surely this is not about classified documents and the president being in possession of those. It has to be more than that, because the Department of Justice and the FBI have already set a standard that makes it virtually impossible to prosecute a case like that. And, as I listened to Merrick Garland at his press conference yesterday say that President Trump is entitled to even-handed treatment of the law, I think President Trump's lawyers today would say, great, treat us exactly like you treated Hillary Clinton. Because if you remember, Larry, what the standard is, as people talk about Espionage Act and classified documents and all of that, the standard was set in 2016. Remember, the Department of Justice and the FBI took the official position that Hillary Clinton, who was in possession of classified documents, including secret, top secret, sensitive, compartmented information outside of a secure facility, that in possession of that wasn't enough, and that being grossly negligent and being careless, Jim Comey told us, that's not enough under the Espionage Act. You have to know that you're violating the law, and that he couldn't prove that Hillary Clinton knew she was violating the law, therefore she couldn't be charged. Well, so even if you assume the worst case scenario for President Trump, that there are classified documents in his possession at Mar-a-Lago, that only puts him where Hillary Clinton was. And what the FBI and the Department of Justice would have to show was that he knew the documents were there, and he didn't think that they were declassified. He's already said publicly that he thinks that they were all declassified. So, the Department of Justice and the FBI really have a problem here based on the Comey standard and what they have done, the precedent they have set. And I think that Donald Trump's lawyers will say, treat us exactly like you treated Hillary. You can't charge us with any crimes.
So didn't the FBI, look, they were there in June. By all accounts, it was cordial. It was cooperative. President Trump himself appeared, offered his services. They wanted a bigger lockbox. They got one. They wanted better video surveillance. They got that, or whatever it was. They basically got everything. Then there's this 2-month gap, and then all of a sudden they show up barging in with this outrageous raid. I mean, I just wondered, didn't they already see what was in President Trump's possession? Didn't they see the documents? I mean, if they wanted stronger locks, John Ratcliffe, on the storage bin, I presume they saw what was in the storage bin.
Right. They had access, by all accounts. There was a complete cooperation there, so they would have had a chance, to see the documents that were in there. And they left and said, look, we need a stronger lock, which, goes back to another point, Larry, in terms of what's taken place here. The allegation, I guess, is that, Donald Trump had classified documents on the premises. Compare that to Hillary Clinton, who had classified documents in a server that Jim Comey admitted was accessed by a foreign adversary. So her conduct was far, far worse, and yet she wasn't charged, couldn't be charged. Remember famously Jim Comey saying no reasonable prosecutor could bring this case based on that. So, absolutely. I think, to your point, though, about the FBI, having access to this months ago, I mean, this is an FBI that doesn't come in with clean hands. This is, the same FBI director that did an exoneration memo of Hillary Clinton 2 months before she was ever interviewed is the same FBI director that opened up an investigation into a Russiagate when he'd already been briefed on the intelligence that it was Hillary Clinton's campaign that had started those allegations. So that has continued through the FISA abuse, filing false affidavits with the court. Very clearly, I think that, this is a continuation of that, and it's why they went in with the most heavy-handed way they could do, executing a search warrant for documents that they knew were there and could have simply asked for.
I mean, according to one of the reports from Politico, one of the investigatory charges, I'll amend that, is that Donald Trump was committing espionage. I mean, really? Donald Trump's going to commit? For what reason is Donald Trump, who ran on America First, and while he was president, by the way, there was no Vladimir Putin invasion of anything. The Abraham Accords, he cut the treaty with Iran. He was tough on China, rang the bell about the China threat for the whole world to see, and cut a tough trade deal that had at least some reciprocity for a change. Donald Trump is going to commit espionage, commit spying? Well, really? I mean, where does that come from?
Well, Larry, why does that surprise you? I mean, these are some of the same folks at the Department of Justice and the FBI who accused him of being a Russian agent. They've been accusing him of espionage for 6 years. So it's a continuation of that, and it's why, frankly, more than half of Americans don't believe, when Merrick Garland says Donald Trump's going to be treated fairly, he's going to get even-handed treatment under the law. They simply don't believe it, because the precedent is time and time again when it has come to Donald Trump, he has been treated unfairly. He's been treated, to a different standard. And in this case, if he gets treated under the same standard, under the Espionage Act, again, there's no basis to bring any charges here, because the Department of Justice and the FBI said 6 years ago, you got to be able to prove intent. He's already denied that he had the intent to do it. So,
I believe the former president said today or yesterday the whole thing's a hoax, this Mar-a-Lago business. I'm just reading here, John. Russian collusion fraud, there's a hoax. The Steele dossier, another hoax. Misleading FISA request for this Carter page, that was another hoax. The Mueller whitewash, another hoax. There's other hoaxes. The Muslim ban was a hoax. The WikiLeaks connection was a hoax. The Trump Tower meeting with Russian lawyers was a hoax. The Russian server at the Trump Tower was a hoax. Kids in cages was a hoax. I mean, there's a pattern here that people will say anything, Democrats will say anything, and now it looks like, since they've taken over the Justice Department, they're going to say anything.
Well, so the problem there is, of all those things that you read off, Larry, and American people have seen this, is the common denominator with all of those things is they have all worked against Donald Trump and or Republicans for the last 6 years. Look, the FBI, for instance, has had problems going back to J. Edgar Hoover. Everyone gets that. But those problems were often institutional, that were related to keeping their own power, all of that. What's different now, Larry, and why the American people are so upset and so outraged is, for the last 6 years, instead what they've seen is from the FBI and the Department of Justice is essentially the FBI acting as the muscle or the strong arm of the Democratic Party. It's partisanship, as opposed to just abuse of power. And, the American people have seen that from all of the things that you've laid out, one after another, always some explanation or excuse for why Donald Trump would be treated differently or Republicans would be targeted, all of those things. And I think that's why poll after poll now shows, unfortunately, that Americans have lost faith and trust in a very important institution like the FBI and in the Department of Justice, and why they think the country's on the wrong track, and why they think that the party that's been in control of those things ought to be taken out of power.
I mean, John, if I get a factoid or two, I might change my mind. But I got to tell you, my instincts here, I mean, this espionage thing is just off the charts. But you're right, he's been accused of spying before. So it's just silly, nonsensical stuff. This here is a fishing expedition. It's connected to January 6th and all those investigations. But most of all, the Democrats want to keep him off the ballot. And they will do anything. And they will weaponize any part of the administration and the executive branch to keep him off the ballot in 2024. That's the way I see it. One big hoax-ridden fishing expedition. Okay? That's my take.
Regardless of all that, Larry, all President Trump would say is apply the same standards to me that you applied to Hillary Clinton, and I'm good with that. You couldn't charge her. You can't charge him under espionage or any of the obstruction charges that are supposedly out there. So
that's why you're the diplomat, John. You put that so elegantly. That's why you're the diplomat. Anyway, John Ratcliffe, thank you, former